Welcome back to SpaceX Daily, Episode 3. It's June 14th, 2026, and I'm Patrick in Vancouver. Let's get into today's SpaceX developments. The week's biggest developments, pulled together, what actually moved, why it matters, and what to watch next. SpaceX listed on NASDAQ under the ticker SPCX on June 12 at $135 per share and closed the first day near $161. Fresh reports now place the company at a $2 trillion valuation, driven by progress on Starship and orbital compute plans. The prospectus baseline showed roughly $18.7 billion in projected 2025 revenue, with Starlink accounting for about two-thirds of that total and already profitable. That valuation ultimately depends on execution at scale, and the clearest recent signal of that scale came from the factory floor. The Gigabay factory received its first public tour this week, showing tooling and floor space laid out for rapid reuse and orbital refueling operations. The facility is sized for a production rate of 1,000 Starships per year, directly addressing the production volume question that has constrained Starship flight test tempo so far. While the factory prepares the fleet, the engine that powers it advanced another step. Raptor 3 now runs at higher chamber pressure than any previous Methalox engine by using a full-flow staged combustion cycle that routes all propellant through both turbopumps. The redesign removes the gas generator and many valves, cutting part count and production time. Thrust exceeds 280 metric tons, while specific impulse stays competitive for both sea-level and vacuum versions. Production rate gains are now the main variable against Starship demand. From an engineering standpoint, full-flow staged combustion works by sending every bit of fuel and oxidizer through the turbines before they reach the combustion chamber. That single change extracts more energy from the propellants, raises pressure, and removes entire subsystems that used to be needed just to drive the pumps. The result is fewer parts to manufacture, fewer joints that can leak, and a shorter assembly line, which is exactly why the cycle has become central to hitting the volumes the factory tour just showed. With engines and ships moving faster, the launch cadence that funds everything kept climbing this week. Falcon 9 completed its 650th flight on the Starlink 10-54 mission from Cape Canaveral. The mission carried 29 satellites and pushed the constellation total past 10,600. Block 5 boosters have now flown past their original design life, demonstrating the annual launch rate headroom the company continues to test. The same orbital infrastructure Starlink is building is also becoming a new compute platform. SpaceX unveiled the AI-1 orbital data center satellite this week. The project targets 1 gigawatt of space compute capacity by late 2027. Company statements emphasize that the effort centers on orbital infrastructure rather than any merger with xAI. The real business case rests on providing compute resources in orbit, separate from Grok development. Reports noted that investors are factoring these data center ambitions into the current $2 trillion valuation. The announcement positions SpaceX hardware as a platform for future space-based processing loads. Observers are tracking whether the 1 gigawatt goal aligns with Starship refueling timelines needed to deploy such systems. Back on Earth, hardware that collectors can touch is now available for pre-order. SpaceX opened pre-orders for a full-scale replica of the Raptor engine bell that matches the outer geometry of the flight article, including nozzle contour and mounting flange. The replica is produced with the same additive and subtractive processes used on actual flight hardware. While replicas go on display, the real flight hardware is already stacking for the next Starship test. Starship Flight 13 preparations include Booster 20 receiving its full set of 33 engines and Ship 40 moving toward a static fire test. Revised Artemis lunar lander plans took shape this week, according to Space News reporting. The updates involve adjustments to NASA's Human Landing System architecture. Starship remains the baseline lander element under the revised approach. Discussions have addressed timeline shifts and integration milestones with the overall Artemis program. These changes occur against the backdrop of ongoing Starship flight test and refueling work. The revisions could influence the schedule for the first crewed lunar landing. Listeners following the Mars Ambitions thread will note how lunar lander decisions feed into broader deep space architecture choices. An op-ed published this week examined the broader significance of SpaceX within the aerospace sector. The piece highlighted how the company's engineering progress has altered access to orbit. It connected Starship development and Starlink deployment to downstream effects on national space programs. The commentary also referenced public market valuation milestones reached after the S&P CX listing. Readers were directed to consider the long-term implications for both commercial and government missions. The op-ed appeared alongside coverage of the $2 trillion valuation driven by Starship and orbital compute bets. Before we go, that static fire attempt and the engine install on Booster 20 are the items to watch next week. And that's a wrap on today's SpaceX developments. SPCX closed at $160.95. Share this with a fellow spaceflight fan if you found it useful, and subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's episode. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. See you next time. And before you go, this show is part of the NARA Network, a family of daily podcasts covering tech, science, markets, and more. If you enjoyed today's episode, give Unintended Consequences a listen. True stories of good intentions that backfired. You can explore the whole lineup at naranetwork.com. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.